Grandma gets a divorce in 1922. Stories from my life, or shall I say stories from Grandma's life. Grandma's porch. Sit down, relax, enjoy. Here on Grandma's porch. Grandma gets a divorce. Grandma gets a divorce. Hello, y'all. I'm Dianna Brianne. I don't give advice, suggestions, information, recommendations, and I am only here for entertainment purposes. Well, y'all know I've been telling stories from my life, but I've kind of run out of some stories from my life, so now I'm telling stories from other people's lives that's appropriate and done in the right way and okay to do so. And this is about Grandma. These are stories that she shared with everyone. Everyone knew these stories, so I wouldn't share anything that was too personal that she would not want to be shared because, well, she was kind of proud of herself having made it through this time. The year was around 1922, and she had been married to someone her father used to drink with. I guess, they all came over on the boat from Europe, as Grandma would call it, the banana boat, because they had to sleep in the bottom of the ship where all the rotten bananas were, because they were too poor to have a regular room. And so she came over when she was just a young girl, and she was married off at about 15 or 16, and it was to, and this is in the early 1900s, and she was married to one of the alcoholic drunken buddies that her dad had hung out with, and I guess he was a young guy, about her age, and so they got married, and Grandma ended up having during this span of time, and there's a little bit more to this story, okay, so hang on. She married, she had 3 babies at that time. She was later to go on and have 3 more total, one that passed away at birth, and so she had a total of 5 girls. But anyhow, he was the first grandpa was not a very nice man, I guess, according to Grandma. Now, he may have been a nice man, I don't know, but he was, in other words, he had a drinking problem. So in 1922 time frame, which was unheard of, Grandma got a divorce. She got a divorce. And so she was on her own, because back then they didn't have all these things called alimony and all that kind of stuff. That all came later. So Grandma was on her own with 3 little kids. And she had a mother who was kind of sickly, so the mother really couldn't help her a lot. And her daddy, I think, was still off kind of drinking. And she did have a wonderful brother, which was Uncle Lewis, and he became a preacher. Uncle Lewis the preacher, and he married Aunt Martha later. And he was just an amazing uncle. And he actually died at old age while he was sitting in church. Probably his favorite place to be was in church. He just, that was how he passed, was in church. But that was many years later. So anyhow, Uncle Lewis helped Grandma during that time a lot. He was a great brother. But anyhow, now there's some questions about, was my mama to the first grandpa or was she to the second grandpa? That's always been a bit iffy, because my mama took the name of the second grandpa, and they always considered her his child. So you know what I'm saying? I don't know. There was kind of a period of time, I think, from the first husband to the second husband, and so, it's really not known for certain, because back then they didn't have all these paternity tests and all that kind of things. So anyhow, we just always considered the second grandpa my mama's grandpa, my mama's dad. But anyhow, So after she got the divorce, that was when I told the story about Grandma goes to jail for making peach brandy, and they took her to jail with my mama. So go back and look at that video. And so Grandma went through a real struggle trying to raise 3 little girls during a very, very poor period of time. Even though the Great Depression hadn't started yet, back where they were living, it was country area, and it was like the Great Depression anyhow. So Grandma was having a really tough time, but she married Grandpa because he'd come by, I think, on the train. Grandpa would hitch rides on the train, and he'd go to different towns and work. He was kind of a hobo, and he wasn't a real hobo, but that was how his mode of transportation was. He didn't have a car or anything. So in order for him he would just jump on one of those trains. He got really, really good at jumping on the trains, and he'd go on the train and chill wherever he was going to go for work, and he'd go for work, and then he'd get another train back. Sometimes he was gone for weeks. But anyhow, they ended up getting married. They had this, I think they lived in a log cabin for a while, and then they got their little house that they raised their 5 little girls in. They raised their 5 children in, and it was only a 3-room house. And I've talked a lot about that house. It was a wonderful little house. And Grandma lived out the rest of her life until almost 100 in that little house by the railroad tracks out in the country, in a little tiny country town of 10 houses, I think it was, 8 or 10 houses. And it was by the railroad tracks, and and it was a wonderful little house, and we have great memories there. And Grandpa, he was a wonderful, father, Grandpa. He did the best he could during the Great Depression. He worked, I think, in the coal mines too. And so it was pretty, a lot of struggles back then. But for Grandma, she was a very brave woman to not put up with somebody who was not good to her. And I don't know the details of that first marriage. I really don't. I just, God bless everybody. May God bless everyone. And, people often do the best that they can at the time, even the people that aren't doing all that great. And so I really don't know the details of that first marriage, other than that it was a very difficult and challenging one for Grandma, being willing enough to leave him and try to raise her 3 little girls on her own during such 1922. So anyhow, that's the story of Grandma. So then she married Grandpa and lived happily ever after, and they created wonderful, wonderful and amazing memories. Well, from my house to yours, may God bless you, and I hope to talk to you soon again. And I do hope you like, share, subscribe to all 5 channels. Links are pinned at the top of the comment section below. And if the links aren't working, please just copy and paste the name of the channel, and you can get there that way. May God bless you. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Porch, a place to relax and a place to enjoy. Grandma's Porch.